This is not a build guide. It's a collection of concepts put together on a character I don't really care to push that much. Nonetheless, I think anyone interested in build making should keep some of the mechanics going on, and I think that a lot of these can be put into other builds, and not all of them are actually interacting with each other. Technically, it's a low-life Doomfletch Stormrain Scion, and I'm using Stormrain because I think it has one of the highest single-target DPS in the entire game as far as bow skills go, but I do have a weapon swap for Lightning Arrow when I do clear. I'm pretty much only going to detail the most interesting mechanics to me. So firstly, we have Curse Immunity, a lot of ailment mitigation, permanent fortify, and uptime on everything. So I'm using two medium cluster jewels, both using Numbing Elixir, which allows me to reduce curse effect by 80%, and then I grab the Eagle Pantheon for the last 20% of curse reduction, giving us curse immunity while we're mapping. Similarly, Numbing Elixir gives us ailment mitigation up to 80%, and theoretically I would get the last 20% of reduced ailment effect from other jewel implicits from Harvest. This is generally good enough for immunity while mapping if you do this, but against something like Seeress, you still might get shocked or frozen or chilled. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really get hit when I do Seeress, you know, God Gamer. No, I'm just kidding. How do we enable this though? Well, in Enduring Mana Flask, let's have permanent Mana Flask usage, getting us 1/2, and then a Life Flask that's relatively weak, so a large or a greater, while using Petrified Blood and Blood Rage lets us permanently have a Life Flask going without going over low life. And because of this permanent Life Flask, now Hardened Scars, the anointment I'm using, gives us Fortify permanently. So now we have a bow build with permanent Fortify that's not a champion. This is huge. Topping all of this off, I use the Traitor Keystone from Brutal Restraint, and I only run 4 flasks, giving us permanent flask uptime almost. Now if I roll Surgeons on my Quicksilver and my Silver Flask, that will actually give me permanent uptime on all my flasks against all bosses. So in terms of scaling Doomfletch wants a ton of flat phys. Firstly, Bloodthirst support is enabled by going low life. Further, because of how Bloodthirst support goes, giving you flat physical damage based on how much life you have, you're now able to scale both life and damage at the same time. And anytime you can scale both defense and offenses, this is incredibly powerful. It's kind of like Archmage. I also use Leadership's Price to get a ton of Brittle Scorch and Sap effect. Now, normally it's kind of annoying to scale these things on Doomfletch because you get mixed elemental damage, but because of how Leadership's Price works, giving you Conflux, in other words, you can apply all the ailments, it's actually quite easy to get a ton of brittle effect especially, which lets me hit close to crit cap. I think I'm around 80 or 90% crit on most bosses. Now you do need to get 2 balanced attributes, and the way I'm doing this is through inertia and some divine orbs. Furthermore, the downside of a poorly rolled Leadership's Price reducing your maximum resist is overcome because I'm using Loreweave. Now Loreweave sets your maximum res to always 78%, and this doesn't change regardless of minus max modifiers, maximum res modifiers, or whatever else. And Loreweave is also really good because it gives us all the things we want: flat fizz, life, elemental damage, global crit chance. And this global crit chance is really valuable when you have such high base crit from getting brittle. Now the other downside of Leadership's Price, not being able to apply Chill, Ignite, Shock, is also mostly mitigated because I'm running Skitter bots on my Doomfletch build, which lets us apply Shock and Chill. Now it turns out Giant's Bane, this one Alec pair of gloves, is actually really good because Iron Grip is giving you flat added fizz, which then gets multiplied by the Doomfletch multiplier afterwards. And as usual, Rislatha's Coil and Steel Rings are really good for scaling your flat physical damage. Now the last weird thing going on is Double Lionized Fall. A lot of bow builds in the mid end are using this. At the higher end though, a 4 prop rare jewel with triple multi and maximum life will be better than running Double Lionized Fall. But basically what's going on is that Lionized Fall can be stacked, and you can actually use 2 of them up top to the right. And this will make those claw nodes that you tend to multiply originally with 1 Lionized Fall really strong. You can actually do this twice. You can check this in-game, and it will actually show the nodes being twice as effective in-game. As far as the usual build-related questions regarding budget, DPS, tankiness, I randomly put this together, and I was really broke. I couldn't even afford an Unnatural Instinct, which is kind of a core item for a lot of Scion builds. As far as the damage goes, it's really hard to calc. I mean, you can see it in the first minnow clip, and I guess what I would say is the damage can be very good, but when bosses move, the damage goes to shit because of how Stormrain works. In terms of tankiness, this build I think has all the fundamental layers of a good tankiness build. So it has aggro, it has phase aggro, you can run Arctic Armor if you really wanted to. There's permanent Fortify, permanent Curse Immunity, almost full ailment mitigation, Overleech, Sap Scaling, which is a great defensive layer, 78% max res, Berserk sometimes, and Life Cannot Hit, which is really great when you're hitting like a couple hundred times per second. Ultimately, I still think that the medium cluster with low life going on and permanent flask uptime in the Trader is sort of the really interesting thing I really want to play around with this league. But that's all I got for you.